All right, a quorum being present, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome our newest member to the committee, Whitney Goodwin. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for April 26th, our regular session. Is there a motion to approve? Motion's been made by Mrs. Randall. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Mr. Goodwin. Any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will call for a vote. Those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there abstentions for the record?
Yes.
Got a few. Eli, Candace, Laura. Whitney, are you abstaining on this?
Yeah, we need it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's me. That's right.
With abstentions recorded, the motion carries.
I was gonna ask that.
Next,
too.
we'll move to our financial report. Acting Business Manager, Mrs. Boyd.
Oh, righty. I don't think this report looks a lot different, because it hasn't been a full month since we met the very end of April. So the report looks very similar, we're still, in good shape. We will, and as we expected, we did have a budget subcommittee, probably doing your job, Sheila, and reporting for you. We just had a budget subcommittee to talk about 1 or 2 year-end transfers that we will bring to you in June, to recommend and ask for a vote, but we're in good shape. Moving on, we have our first town meeting tomorrow night in Wales, where on the docket, they're supposed to support our school budgets, so, hopefully, we've got 2 in May and 3 in June, so we'll be actually all done by the time we meet next, and all should be good.
Any questions on the financial report? All right, we'll move to staff reports. Ms. Joseph.
Hi there, everybody. So we are rebounding off 2 great weekends in a row at the high school. The first of which was The Little Mermaid, as you know, we talked about ahead of time. 3 great performances, sold out show on Friday night, and to the point where we were worried about the fire marshal. All is good, all is good. But we had 3 great performances. It was great to see. It was a family activity, people coming in, kids coming in and loved it. We did the preview for our elementary schools on the Thursday prior to that, the 3rd and the 4th grade for our district, and they got to see the first half of the show, and they loved it. I realized as well that I might be pursuing a little bit of a post-career in elementary life. It was fun to do for a day. I'm not sure how it'd be full-time, but it was definitely fun to say, if you can hear me, clap twice. I don't get to do that as much. The high school kids just look at me like, what? But it was fun. It was great to have them see it, and it was a wonderful performance. So much time went into it from the students with rehearsal, and also sets and our staff, and so I can't say enough about everything that everybody did with that. This past weekend, we of course had prom. We all bused to our location and bused back. Busing is really going very well. It provides, all of our students are there all night with us, and having the most natural experience. I will say that service was subpar and food was subpar, but it didn't matter on the dance floor. They absolutely had a blast on the dance floor. And I was explaining earlier, if the dance floor is this library, they all danced in a space like this, and the rest of it was all open. They were great. They were all appreciative on the way home, and it was nice to hear as well from the police officers from Worcester who were there and wonderful, and the establishment themselves about how good our kids were and how appreciative they were. So it was a very nice night. We're moving on to some of our last things, are things like the 4th quarter Student of the Quarter, our honors reception, graduation, of course, class night, and all of the senior events that we are in the midst of putting together. We're in the middle of MCAS right now with regard to MCAS math for our sophomores, and then we look to MCAS science for our grade 9 students in June. We just finished up AP testing. it was not without glitches, so just be aware of that. The glitch is the technology piece, not so much on our end, but learning that when things happen, you know, when connectivity gets lost, that AP is pretty rigid about how that goes. And so as they begin to introduce technology as one of, you know, they're really moving toward that in terms of the only option as to how you'll be able to take the test sooner rather than later. You know, we've seen how the glitches can be, and hopefully that they begin to work on some of those things. So that's been one of the things. Our yearbooks came in yesterday, and we will be distributing to our senior class at the close of this week, ahead of the underclassmen who will receive theirs next week. So we are looking to do that on Friday of this week to get those yearbooks to our students. We also had I was remiss in mentioning our spring concert, as well as I talked about our music department. We had our spring concert as well, which included a number of our student groups, and also a student orchestrated group that they put together their own subgroup from the jazz band and put together a little bit of a Bill Withers tribute for those of you who know Bill Withers. Our sports teams are doing well. We are knocking on the door of our postseason play at this moment, and we have our baseball team is a strong contender, as are some of our other teams, but baseball's really had a fantastic season there. So we are looking at some postseason play. We also did a celebration of our teachers last week as well for Teacher Appreciation Day, where the administration came together and we made made some signs for them and put some food out. So we said it was something along the lines of those school years can get a little nuts, and we put nuts on the table, a variety of different individual nuts. The fruit of your labors, we put fruit there, and your kindness, we put kind bars, will have sweet rewards and some candy. So we did that, and we brought the ice cream truck for them on Friday as well, and the administration team sponsored that. So we had a nice time celebrating them. We're in the midst, like I said, of planning for the rest of the school year and next year.
Questions for Ms. Joseph? Thank you, Lee. Mr. Sturgis?
Sure, just not as many activities going on, but we have some good stuff going on at the junior high as well. I included the spotlight kind of on we've talked about it before, is our Tantasqua Chestnut Club. I included the article. I thought it was pretty cool that they're in a nationally publicized syndicate. So I actually included on the back page, if you have the same packet as me, I'm not sure if you do, from Science World Scholastic. So that is just the advertisement. I get a million of these every day in my email box. But for this, for Science World, just goes to all the folks across the country as the advertisement, and it's our kids, our Chestnut Club on it. So I thought that was pretty cool to highlight. The article is really cool, really in-depth detail, and I know our teachers scoured through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure the information was accurate as well. And I like that it spotlights most of our students. It talks to mostly former TRJHS students, high school kids, but the way this project has blown up, because it started before my time, and so I've been here kind of along for the ride with Mr. Green and Mrs. Daly and Miss Amadeo for the work that's been put in. So I just wanted to share that with you guys as well. We had an NJHS National Junior Honor Society food drive last week, and we collected over 2,000 items of food that will be donated to, we were trying to determine the pantries we go to. One is going to be in Southbridge, and there's another one that they have a connection with in Worcester. Food pantry that we'll donate the food items to. There's also food pantry in Holland and Wales that we're going to contribute to as well. And so, just a lot of things going on. We have MCAS right now. We just finished 7th grade math today, so our 7th graders are done for the year. Almost all of them. 8th grade is the next 2 days, and they have science next week. So we're getting close to done with MCAS. And then I included in there just a list of events for the end of the year, because it feels like there's a lot. So I don't know exactly how many days are left. I'm not one for the countdown, but it feels like there's something going on almost every day in June, which is fantastic for our kids because they really enjoy these things. So our Memorial Day ceremony, for anyone who doesn't know Mrs. Willard, she stepped up and kind of, because COVID shut it down, and what I envisioned for bringing back our Memorial Day ceremony is not, she's kind of gone way overboard, and it's going to be really fantastic. That's just who she is. She doesn't do anything halfway. And because it's Mrs. Willard asking for the help, a ton of staff have jumped on board. And so there's, for what was supposed to just be trying to bring something that used to be positive back, we've gone 10 times over the top, and it's gonna be fantastic. So anyone's invited to join us on Friday morning next week in the gym at 9 a.m. We are having breakfast with veterans. Any students with veterans and their family want to invite them in for a breakfast at 8 a.m. that we will be serving the veterans and their students at 8 a.m. before the ceremony. So looking forward to that, and I think that was everything. I did have a request, Mrs. Blair, I don't know do I bring that up here? Just,
Yeah, it probably is gonna be a unanimous consent, not necessarily a vote, but it did just pop up today, so
I
we
had a
should share
student
that.
from the high school student, who's a former TRJHS student, who approached me and asked for his community service project for his Eagle Scout, if he could do a project on our school grounds, which is him and his troop were going to rebuild our benches for our baseball and softball field. They have a whole plan mapped out how they're gonna do it, when they're gonna do it, and they just needed our permission to be able to move forward with just, it's no cost to us at all. It's just something his troop is going to do us for his project.
There's no cost to us, so we just wanted to make sure you folks knew.
Does anyone have
We're
an
good
issue
with
with
it
that?
unless someone has an issue. It's great.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Sturgis? Mr. Wood couldn't be with us tonight. His report is included in your packet. There is one request.
Which is a second one, and this is moving to the next level, which is awesome. Not to be confused with last month's vote.
So I'll entertain a motion to allow Jack Pollock to compete at the Skills USA competition in Atlanta, Georgia, and for Skills USA co-advisor, Mr. Bernard, to chaperone the trip.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Hagerty, seconded by Mrs. Randall. Is there any objection to the request? Seeing none, by unanimous consent, the request is approved. All right, we'll move to committee reports. Soon to be a fond farewell. Ms. Lima, why don't you take it off?
Thank you. All right. Reporting on Skills USA, there's one student preparing for the Nationals competition in Georgia, held June 19th. In electrical, seniors have just finished the steamer, kettle, and new oven installation at Wales Elementary School. The seniors will start working on the senior center, moving the wiring from where they are now to the church while the additions to the current senior center begins. In IT, juniors are working on their Network Pro certification. They are building and subnetting LANs in the lab. Seniors have earned their Security Pro certifications, as select seniors will be traveling to Brookfield Elementary to demonstrate their life in IT to the sixth graders there. In hospitality and culinary, the Cornerstone Cafe is still open for lunch service, delivery, and private events for the next couple of weeks to finish off the year. Juniors are working on a travel unit that is going to segue into tourism and recreation, as seniors are studying entrepreneurship and the process of opening a business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen.
Good evening. The school year for most is beginning to conclude, and seniors are poised in their senior year this Friday after a fruitful 4 years here at the high school. Since mid-April, much has transpired across the street and many events are in the works, despite the fast approaching end of the school year. As Ms. Joseph mentioned, AP testing has concluded, and finals and MCAS are up next for students. Spring sports are well underway, with the boys lacrosse and baseball teams making noticeable strides in their respective seasons. However, all the teams are, at the very least, performing with some consistency from week to week and never stumbling too hard to it. In the performing arts, the community just relished the fantastic performance of The Little Mermaid as well. The student council just wrapped up Teacher Appreciation Week. In the morning, heartfelt affirmations were given out to teachers with candy, and in the afternoons, refreshments were given out to teachers during their afternoon help sessions. Currently, this week is Senior Send-Off Week, and the Spirit Days remaining are Career, Future Plans Day tomorrow, Walking Yearbook Day, and then Class Colors Day on Friday. This coming Saturday, we'll be conducting the Spring Warrior Day of Service, which will be outdoors. We'll be helping with landscaping, planting flowers, and cleaning up the campus in conjunction with our grounds recognition of our student council seniors. The annual banquet for student council will be held. And finally, the council is currently seeking to initiate a unified field day with our pathway students, hopefully which will be expected to be sometime in June. On May 12th, as Ms. Joseph mentioned, we had our junior prom in Worcester at the Marriott. It was the first for some and the final for many. The event was well attended and enjoyed by all, though some of us were a little salty that there wasn't any rice pilaf offered. Finally, Tantasqua.
Jake.
Yeah, I was salty. Finally, Tantasqua hosted in partnership with Country Bank the Credit for Life event for seniors, which was also on the 12th. It was very successful, informative, and applicable event for the intensive purpose of instilling frugality and monetary concepts into seniors as they embark on new financial endeavors post-high school. Thank you, and I have thoroughly enjoyed through the course of the year acting as a liaison for matters both academic and civic between the school, the community, and the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you to you both.
So Jake and Anna, do you want to come up front for a minute? Because this is your final meeting in your official capacity before you both graduate, wanted to present you both with a citation on behalf of the school committee. You, that one's for you, and
Thank
just
you.
say how much we appreciate your engagement, the updates that you provide us, the connection that you give us to the student body, and quite honestly, the great representation that you provided all of your peers. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You guys did a great job. See you at graduation.
Jake,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a great one, guys.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move to budget. Mrs. Noyes Miller, I don't have a citation for you.
Oh.
Does that mean you want me to leave?
I'm sticking around.
Okay. So as Deb reported, that we may have some votes next month for some transfers, and at our meeting tonight, we discussed amending the technical capital plan, and we are also looking at end-of-year transfers. We're putting more funds hopefully into OPEC. And we also had conversation around transportation staffing needs. And if we have any formal votes that need to be taken, they will be done in June,
Thanks, Jake.
and I'm sure we will.
Mrs. Noyes Miller, we'll move to technical. Mrs. Custance
We'd be happy.
takes us to curriculum, the meeting, bylaw and policy. Mrs. Fitzgerald.
Always count on bylaw.
You had me
Buckle up.
Mrs. Barasso is
I was taking dubious
starting to
notes and
prepare.
you came walking in.
I was late because of practice and I came that close to saying.
Just give me a little bit more of advance notice.
It's not that bad.
It is
Unfinished
not.
is
No,
mostly
it's
second reading.
Not, my boy.
So what we're gonna do, with your indulgence, is take these in three sections, three votes by their personalities. The first, will be policies BDFA-E through policy CHCA. And those are before you on either new second reading adoption or amended second reading and adoption. There have been no change in those policies, since first reading, and we move that they be, approved as noted on the agenda.
We'll bring the motion to the floor. Doesn't require a second. Recommendation of bylaw and policy. Is there any discussion? Are there any objections? By unanimous consent, the chair so approves.
Next, we have 11 policies ranging from policy BDFA-E-1 through policy GDQC. They are before you to be rescinded on second reading. I will note that Mr. Chairman raised some questions about a few of these policies that prompted me to take a second look at your suggestion as to whether or not rescinding these policies, specifically those pertaining to retirement, professional staff, suspension and dismissal of professional staff, et cetera, in any way altered rights and obligations of either our superintendent, our principals, or this school committee. And I stand by the subcommittee's initial recommendation that they do not, that these are not statements of policy, that in fact they are adequately covered in our collective bargaining agreements, and for that reason, they are properly rescinded as part of this vote. So we move that all 11 of those policies, ranging as noted, be rescinded on second reading.
Bring the motion to the floor, doesn't require a second. Are there any questions or is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Seeing none, then by unanimous consent, the chair so approves.
And finally, this is new business, we have 8 policies before you on amended first reading. I will very quickly comment on each and move for their amendment as one vote. First before you is policy ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. You will see that we simply added a sexual orientation or gender as required by law to our existing policy and included a cross-reference to the DOE's notice of interpretation of those terms. Next, sexual harassment, policy ACAB. Going through the policy, it's very extensive, as you can see, and you'll recall that we have an equally extensive harassment policy. And what we noticed in going through this is we have some duplicative language that in fact more properly belongs and is contained in our harassment policy. You'll see that language is deleted on page 1 and on page 2. All of the matters contained in those paragraphs, again, apply to our harassment policy, and to the extent that they apply to the sexual harassment policy, they are contained elsewhere in this policy. So it's duplicative language. That's the only changes there. Next, policy AD. Our policy is titled Educational Philosophy to be consistent with not only our own internal documents and other policies, but with MESC, we're suggesting a change to mission statement. It's a more accurate statement of what we're talking about. And you'll see we took out one sentence there in the second paragraph that we actually found to be too limiting in terms of the basic skills that we expect our children to master. The old language limited it to just language arts, mathematics, and scientific literacy. There's far more that we expect our children to encompass as part of basic skills, so that sentence has been changed to broaden the scope of the mastery that we expect under our mission statement. Next, we have policy BBAA, school committee member authority. Again, some minor technical corrections, the word authority taken out, changing his/her to their, which is consistent with our move throughout all of our policies. And under the duties, we found all of that language to be more appropriately a part of our new school committee handbook. It outlines some duties and obligations of committee members, but makes clear that these may be enumerated there. It's not an exhaustive list, and rather than try and come up with an exhaustive list or cherry pick among them, we think it's more appropriate to keep the policy as a more general statement and then refer our members to the handbook for better delineation of what their actual individual duties and obligations are. Policy BBBA/BBB, school committee member qualifications/oath of office. We took out one line, which if we keep it in this policy, we have to add it to virtually every single policy. It's a statement of law that we all accept as simply that, a statement of law. It doesn't need to be included in this policy, the race, color, sex, religion, national origin, et cetera. We added a paragraph, which is required by law, and in fact, we're taking that same language and putting it in the new, the handbook for school committee members to make clear that we do have obligations to continue to update ourselves on the conflict of interest of law. You'll see it's every 2 years. We have to all take the ethics online training program. So it's here and also in your handbook, and hopefully that'll keep us all on track with our obligation in that regard. Policy BG, school committee policy development and adoption. We essentially compared the language that MASC recommends with ours and agreed unanimously that MASC's statement was simply a better statement of, it's more concise, better statement of what the school committee's role is in policy development, more concise, and that is really our goal here with all of this policy reviews, to try and get these to be more accessible when people read them and not getting lost in the reads. And you'll see that we adopted a much cleaner, straightforward language there at the bottom. And finally, not quite finally, policy revision and review, PGC. Same argument, we simply included language which is a better description of what our role is with respect to policy revision and review. Does not change any of our rights and obligations under the existing policy. And now finally, policy CHCA, approval of handbooks and directives. Again, we took out language that, you'll see all student handbooks shall contain the following provisions. It was our consensus that really that language is cherry picking what handbooks will contain, and we are simultaneously going through our bylaw and policy, and our leadership is looking at the handbook itself. So rather than delineate in this policy portions of the handbook versus all of it, we went with a much more concise, clean language, and we will look to our leadership to do the same with the handbook, and again, make both our policies and our handbook more accessible and more available to parents and students alike. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I ask that the subcommittee, that the full committee accept this subcommittee's recommendation that all of those policies be amended on first reading as noted.
All right, we'll bring that motion to the floor. Is there discussion? Seeing none, are there any objections? By unanimous consent, approved on first reading, and I think the remaining items were just simply reviewed, no action.
Correct.
Anything else to report, Mrs. Fitzgerald?
No, we actually have one more meeting, one more. And the date escapes me, but it's Thursday, it's this?
No,
oh,
it's next Thursday.
It's next Thursday. Yes, we will have one more meeting next week. You're all welcome.
I'm sure we'll see everybody there.
Thank you very much. Negotiations, Mrs. Randall, any update? And then building and physical plant did not meet. Brings us to communications. We have one item in communications from the town of Sturbridge.
Just one FYI in there, that
Lee, as of the writing, had an application been submitted?
No,
Has one since this letter?
yes, and I'm working with them on that.
And all proper channels will be followed and whatnot?
Yes, I've worked with them by both email and met with them in person, along with our facilities manager, to walk our grounds, to review some things that need to be done. We've been in touch since then, and I'm awaiting a reapplication, an updated application to reflect what their needs really are, given our conversations.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
Brings us to superintendent's report.
Okay, mostly housekeeping items, as all the fun stuff has already been reported on either by the principals or the students. The reminder, the joint meeting is the 13th. Warning, we could be a little bit of a heartier agenda than usually before our regular meeting. We are, aside from usually May and June, is the superintendent's evaluation and future goals. We are, I do believe, no, we actually definitely will have a recommended candidate for the next director of business and finance, so that is an appointment that needs to be by both committees. We'll have that happen that night, and with any luck, we will have at least a draft mission vision document. Kind of segueing to that, we did have a meeting last week, a subcommittee group of half a dozen or so school committee members, and Jake joined us, which was awesome, and loved his contribution. We have one more meeting scheduled on the 25th. Anyone that wants to come and join us, feel free, and hopefully we'll have a document that we can present to you on the 13th. And then we'll segue into, so the reminder, that is not our usual meeting. It's the second Tuesday of June instead of the third Tuesday of June. So didn't wanna lose track of that.
What time's that meeting start?
We'll start the joint at 6, and then we will segue right into the Tantasqua one. Okay? Graduation tickets, we were hoping to have them tonight, but we couldn't quite get our hands on. I think what I'll ask Ms. Joseph to do is send them over to me in the next couple of days, and you can all either, we plan on having a ticket for each of you, so if any of you can let me know either if you wanna stop by and get your ticket, or if you're unable to get by, I'll be happy to mail them to you. Some of you, I might see it on the other meetings before then, depending on if you're town meetings or school committee, but we'll get that going. And those of you who have graduates, just a reminder, make sure you let Mrs. Joseph know if you would like to give your student the diploma or not. We always work that out quite eloquently, a little bit. And school committee members, we usually have a section of seating on the field. Last year was to the right of the stage.
Yeah, we've
but-
moved the handicap seating closer to the entry of the stadium side, and that's where we will,
Yeah.
likely have that area.
Okay. That'll do it, other than pizza on the second.
Second.
Yep.
Yeah. Did we lock on the time yet? Are we gonna do it after that?
Well,
And I have it on our calendar that they are to be there until 11:30 for rehearsal.
so I'm gonna do my best to get pizza delivery at 11, and then us
In the
prepping and
concession
handing it out. And knock on wood, so our plan is to do it in the concession stand, that has worked out nicely.
Yeah.
We have had one day that rain interfered, and we quickly moved things into the auditorium, so let's just, that is like a May 28th problem. To take a look at, I cannot go that far ahead.
Play that by ear.
Yeah,
And then one additional item, you'll all be receiving a communication from me in the next 10 or so days with the superintendent's achievements against her goals. And you'll be asked, similar to the last couple of years, you'll get a link. You'll be asked to assess her via that link. We'll put the cutoff date and everything in the communication that goes out, because obviously I'll need to work with Mrs. Cunningham to collate those before the next meeting. So please keep your eyes peeled for that communication. Don't make me chase you, but I will. Moves to public access. Mr. Lamoff, anything from you?
Yeah, actually, I just want to say that the TA had a couple of members placed. Mrs. Carboni is vice president, Mrs. Stalker from the junior high is vice president. And just as a whole team, we look forward to working with you and being there for you in the future.
Right back at you. Thank you all. Open forum. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion's been made by Mrs. Noyes Miller, seconded by Mrs. Panic. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
See you hopefully at graduation.
Hey, can technical see you for 1 minute for release?
Sorry,
Technical.
if you
I don't
want,
know, he's always says your name, I should go.
it-